Is everybody back with us now? Kent Siding.
Okay, Jim, I think
You ready?
it was yours again. Yeah.
Okay. Recognitions, Kim.
Yeah, thank you. Got some nice recognitions this month. First folks that I want to recognize are the folks from Rusty Eck Ford. For the second time in 5 years, Rusty Eck has donated a used car to the Auto Tech program. This partnership between Rusty Eck and Butler and the Auto Tech program has been really strong for the last number of years. The cars, of course, that are donated are great educational tools for our students. Rusty Eck also provides internship opportunities for our students as well. And so we want to say thank you to Rusty Eck for that donation. Brad Wilson with the Ford Motor Company Parts and Services, he's their services operations manager. When the car was donated, spoke at the donation. And he told the students that right now, over the next 5 years, 20% of our technicians will be eligible for retirement. And we're not alone in that. Most of the industry, he said, is in that same situation. So there's a great need for automotive technicians and for great salespeople in our industry. It's a robust industry, and there's a great opportunity for all of us to grow in that. You have a great future ahead of you and a great opportunity in front of you. So we want to say thank you, even though we don't have a Rusty Eck representative here, or I don't think on Zoom. We want to say thank you and let everyone know that we really appreciate their partnership and their support for our program. So
do you send them
thank
some
you.
kind of certificate?
Yes. Yes. Sorry. And there was a press release and everything that went out with that.
Right.
We also want to recognize Foley Tractor. Foley Tractor out of Topeka donated a commercial grade 9 liter diesel engine and transmission to the Auto Tech program as well. So they've been a great partner and are really encouraging us to expand into some diesel technology and start to train students in the areas of diesel technology as well. So we have folks here from the, so we want to say thank you to Foley's. I don't want to forget to clap and thank them. We also have folks here from the nursing department. We have Caleb Edgar, who's our associate dean, and Christy Streeter, who's our dean. I think those are the nursing folks. I don't know if we have anybody else on Zoom, but we want to say congratulations to the spring 2020 nursing class. They had a first-time pass rate on their NCLEX, their national RN exam, of 94%, which is pretty phenomenal. Carrie Smith, who's the administrative assistant in the nursing department, said that she feels this shows just how important our faculty are when they completed half of the semester online. So congratulations to Christy and Caleb, and of course to all the nursing faculty and the students. So and do you know, I don't remember what some of the other pass rates were across the state. I mean, that was a really, really high pass rate. Okay, so for those of you that are online that maybe didn't hear, Caleb said that the average first-time pass rate across the state was 84%. So our folks knocked it out of the park. So congratulations, thank you. And for folks that don't know, by next spring, the transition will be complete to competency-based curriculum, correct? Yeah, so it's been a huge, huge change in everything that they're doing. So we're proud of you. Thank you very much. Great job. Next recognitions. I have to turn my page. We want to recognize a number of folks from college relations and marketing. Every year, the National Council for Marketing and Public Relations awards medallion awards. And this year, our marketing department, which includes Kelly Cruz, Noah Stevens, Morris Stewart, Micah Streeter, James Schiffler, Rodney Dimmick and Andy Jacks received a number of awards, outstanding awards and recognition for their hard work and creative efforts. We're in Region 5, and so the awards that they received out of Region 5, award for Meta Major Folder, which was a silver award, but it was the only award presented in this category. The judges do this on occasion when they feel that no one is worthy of a gold, and so they didn't give a gold award, but they gave a silver award. So our marking department received the silver this year for the Meta Major Folder in Region 5. So we're proud of them for that. Kelly Cruz received a silver for the redesign of the Early College Academy logo. So she received that silver in the logo design award area. Kelly Cruz and our student worker, Noah Stewart, received a silver for the Christmas card that they created last year. It was an e-card with the snowflakes animated on it. It was really beautiful. And so Kelly and Noah worked on that, but they also had help from Mara Stewart and Micah Streeter and James Sisler because they all assisted. And for those of you that are wondering, Micah Streeter is Christy's son, who's now in California going to school in film directing school. So pretty cool. And then the department also received, Rodney Dimmick received a gold in the photos manipulated award area for the Volvo and Butler sign photo. And Andy Jacks received a silver for his anatomy and physiology photo of a student that was studying a bone. And so we're really proud of our college relations and marketing department. There are individual certificates and recognitions for all of these folks, and so we'll get them to those folks as well. So we want to say congratulations to them, and we're proud of them for all of their great accomplishments. So great job to them. And then last but not least, I want to let you know and recognize Dr. Isam Mohammed. The end of October on the 26th, Isam did a presentation at the Canadian Institutional Research and Planning Association conference. It was supposed to be a face-to-face conference, but ended up getting moved to virtual, of course, because of COVID. Isam had written a paper and then presented it at the conference. The paper was entitled Academic Program Viability, a comprehensive model for teaching focused on undergraduate institutions. And so we're proud of Isam for his commitment and work, and for the great information that he has shared beyond just Butler Community College. We get the benefit of his great work and his team's work all the time, but really proud that he's been able to share his expertise beyond our little Butler border. So Isam, I know you're online. Congratulations. We're proud of you, and thank you for doing that. So good job. That's what I have. Thanks, everybody. Where's Jim? You're up next, Jim. Thanks, you guys.
Do we have any anyone in the on Zoom or in the boardroom for public comment?
We do not, Jim. Thank you.
All right, well then we'll move on past public comment. Move on to standing report, Student Government Association. Kirsten, where is she?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. I can't get my camera to work, so. All right. So since the end of October, we've had several things. October 28th, we had a pumpkin carving and hot cider event on the BOA campus, which was all throughout the day. And then October 29th, we partnered with Residence Life and the cafeteria staff to hold a costume contest at the BOE campus for students to participate in for Halloween. And then last week, we advertised Butler's Halo group on our social media for their Day of the Dead table, which was located in the Student Union at BOA. And then last Wednesday, we held our last SGA meeting for the semester, which was here on the BOE campus. Yesterday, we started our second giveaway, which is taking place on Instagram, which once again includes a backpack, Butler gear, an Amazon Echo, and a food gift card. Today, financial aid held a seminar in the library from 3:30 to 4 over the topic of credit scores, credit cards, and credit reports. And they had cups of soup and cinnamon rolls, so we helped them advertise that as well. And then coming up, our SGA team and our advisors all plan to attend the BOA ribbon cutting this Thursday. Thank you.
Hey, thank you. Operational staff report, Lisa. There she is.
Hey, good evening. At our October meeting, we hosted Mary Hunter from Information Services, and she provided us with an informational overview of all the services we can now access through the redesigned ServiceNow portal. We're able to make room reservations, request AV equipment or setup, create a facilities ticket, and even submit copy jobs all from one centralized location. This updated portal will allow us to streamline our processes and get the job done quicker. And then our fund development committee has decided to postpone the pie sales until the spring and cancel our annual December craft show. But we have had some amazing alternative fundraiser suggestions, like a virtual paint night and a cornhole or pickleball tournament that will allow faculty, staff, students to battle for Butler bragging rights. So we will continue to develop those ideas and give you an update on those in the coming months. Our next operational staff meeting is this Thursday, November 12th. And that is all I have for you this evening. I hope you all have a wonderful Thanksgiving.
Hey, well, thank you, Lisa.
You're welcome.
Professional employees report, Terry.
Jim, I don't really have anything to report. We're within the last 2 weeks of the semester and everyone's up to here with their grading. So I guess no news is good news. And
True.
Sit in and listen tonight.
Good. Well, thank you so much, Terry, for all your hard work. Board Finance Committee report.
We met before the meeting and just mostly took a little deeper dive into some of the budget stuff that we'll talk about a little later tonight. I think it sounds like there may be potentially a little less state dollars and maybe, so it's good that we planned a little more conservatively earlier in the year, probably from the sounds of it. So, but I think a lot of that stuff we'll get into later this evening. Shelby, did you have anything particular to add?
Okay. Thank you, Lance. Foundation Board report.
Yeah, Jim, nothing to add. The Foundation Board is meeting next Tuesday, so we'll have I'll have an update at the December meeting.
Okay, thank you, Forrest. President's report, Kim.
A couple of things. We are starting the 14th week of classes. If you remember correctly, our students will be done with their finals right before Thanksgiving, and we're sending them off campus. Those that can take off and leave for the holiday break. A lot of institutions are moving to remote between Thanksgiving and Christmas to have students finish their finals and those kinds of things. But we really made that decision this summer that we wanted them to be done so that they didn't have access problems and that they weren't trying to finish up final projects and finals remotely. It's a high stress time of the semester anyway. And so we'll be done. They'll be done right at Thanksgiving time. Our offices and folks and stuff will still be on campus until we break for Christmas break. So we're seeing increased COVID cases this week. We report our update every Monday. And just as everything is, climbing in the surrounding areas and the school districts and the communities and the counties, we have increased cases on campus this week as well. We have 26 students that are active positive cases and 12 employees, and more in quarantine. The students are not all on campus living in the residence halls, but it's sort of indicative of what we're seeing in our communities and around the counties and stuff as well, and the other school districts. And so just sent an email out to all of our employees last night, encouraging people to continue to follow our mask mandates, social distancing, disinfecting. We're disinfecting our learning spaces and offices daily. Facilities and custodial teams are doing an amazing job of increased disinfecting everywhere. And part of it is I think that folks are tired and we're being a little bit more complacent probably. We're gathering in groups maybe more than we were, but there's obviously more positivity rate just in the community. And so there's just more exposure that's happening as well. So we're going to continue to work on that. We've continued to do all of our own contact tracing on campus, which I think has helped us. But we're, looking forward to hopefully sending students home to their families for a period of time healthy, and then, getting them back in January. And January semester or the spring semester is going to be same format as fall semester. We haven't made any, changes to our protocols at all. We'll still mandate masks on campus, social distancing in the classrooms, all of those same protocols for spring semester. And faculty, of course, will be ready to flip back and forth between face-to-face and remote as is needed for either them to be able to teach if they have to be in quarantine or they've been exposed or they have students that are in that situation.
I have a question.
Sure.
On the, where do we stand on the ability to distribute vaccines according to what the state has decided who prioritizes?
We won't know any of that.
Well, that's what I was
spring,
hoping that you
yeah.
might know what kind of timeline that we had.
What we're being told right now from a vaccine perspective is that it will be sometime probably late spring before we have access to anything.
Oh, that's
They
good.
have,
At least it's then.
Yeah. They have talked about putting college students higher on a priority list because of residence hall living and, partying, stuff like that, I suppose,
I don't know.
athletic
any students
events.
that party, do you?
Well, one or two maybe. But as soon as I know more of that, I'll let you know. But
Well,
I think it'll be
the
a ways
health
down the road.
department Or the
Yeah.
state, will probably put that out. But I wondered because I know seniors are
Yeah.
up there pretty high, and
Yeah.
so,
We don't know any of that for sure yet. We're trying to plan for the 2nd of December. You'll get information soon. We try to do it on an annual basis, a legislative luncheon, and invite the legislators that cover the college, but also cover, this part of the state, and invite in also the school superintendents and their board chairs, city administrators and the mayor. And so we're working on planning that. I'm a little bit squishy about doing that. But we can switch to remote if we want to. I don't necessarily want to do that, but we're trying to plan that we would bring people in on the 2nd, whoever can come, and obviously be socially distanced and have Great
talking
Western
about
do
what month?
December, before the legislative session starts. On the 20th of October, I hosted for part of the afternoon Leonard Hernandez, who's the new CEO at Susan B. Allen Hospital, and Holly Landon, who's the executive director of the foundation there. She's been on the foundation staff there for a while, but nice to welcome Leonard and his wife Joni to town. They'll be good community partners, as SBA has always been for the college. The ribbon cutting for the 5,000 building is on Thursday. I hope you'll be able to attend that. You should have received an electronic invitation for that. And so I'm hopeful that you'll be able to come. The actual ribbon cutting part of it is at 1:30, I think. The actual ribbon cutting's at 1:30. If you want to come at 1, we'll do a few tours ahead of time, and then we'll do some tours afterwards as well.
Is that sent out today?
No, Kelly Snedden sent that. It came out for marketing. It was an email, electronic invitation, so it would have come out. I don't know. Laura, do you know when it was sent out? It would have come out last week sometime, I think.
Yeah, I want to say Tuesday.
Last Tuesday?
Mm-hmm. Oh,
okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
Last Tuesday.
Nurses pinning is being scheduled for the 24th, and it will just include the nurses and nursing faculty. And they're going to do it down in the Clifford Stone room, socially distanced, the whole thing, but no family. They'll live stream it for family and friends and things like that. But we want to try and still do nurses pinning on the 24th before they're done. And then all of you have in front of you a copy of our Veterans Day roll. We do this every year, try and update this. This is not inclusive of everybody that we have, faculty and staff and board members and students, because it's just volunteer. Laura sends out an email asking for information and updates, and we certainly know that not everybody submits their information, but just of the folks that are listed here, 284 and a half years of service among our staff. Forrest is on the list this year. We've got Kent and Lori and Lynn. There's, some familiar names on here that I know you recognize, but deep gratitude to all of our veterans that have served, no matter how many years that they've served. And I know we all are appreciative of that commitment that they have made, that really allows us to live a life of freedom and freedom of choice, and really live in a world where we feel a lot safer and a lot more protected than a lot of other individuals do around the world. So thanks to all of our veterans, and tomorrow is a special day with it being Veterans Day. And I know that a lot of the Veterans Day celebrations are not going to be held tomorrow because of COVID. And so, let's all remember and thank our veterans as we see them, and appreciate them. So I'm going to say thank you to all of our veterans. I think that's what I have. I'm answering questions. I would be happy to answer questions if you have any.
Okay, well, thank you, Kim. The Educational Facilities Authority report, we don't meet till December. Doug, do you want to tell everybody we didn't meet? I guess not. Okay, well, we didn't meet. So
that's true. We didn't meet.
So there was nothing going on with that. So we'll move on to the next agenda item, monitoring reports, division report on online high school community learning.
That is us.
Yeah, you may have to speak right in your microphone.
Okay.
Heather.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to share with you a little bit about what's been going on in our division. Donnie and I are honored to lead this team, and are really proud of the work that we have accomplished in the last year or so. So we're just going to share a little bit about each department in our division. And I want to start with our educational technology team. You heard from Mark last month, about the way that we were able to pivot and move to the virtual environment. And that is large part FDT, our faculty development, and then EdTech coming alongside them and helping with that. So we're extremely proud of the work that they've done in helping us transition and helping support our faculty and staff during COVID. But they have also been able to do all of that without skipping a beat on their day-to-day operations. So part of that is the course development process. So they work alongside our faculty to develop courses that we offer online. So just to put this in perspective for you, 2 years ago, we had 51 courses that they developed into online. And this past year, in the midst of COVID and everything, they were able to develop 73 courses. Wow. So absolutely unprecedented workload, and just shows their dedication to the quality of our online programs. In addition to that, I also want to share that the development of those courses allowed us to transition 18 degree and certificate programs online in the last year. In addition to that, they have shown just extreme dedication to accessibility. And if you haven't heard about that, it's very widespread. Lots of people are focused on accessibility for websites, for online courses, pretty much everything. So our EdTech team developed their own accessibility training that we offer in-house, and that training is also offered externally. So we've had people from across the country take our EdTech team's training, as well as our faculty and staff. So again, they make Butler a leader in the EdTech world, and we're really proud of that. In addition to that, Dr. Kroll shared with you a few months ago that our EdTech team went through the trusted tester training through the Department of Homeland Security, And we also have a member of our ed tech team that's certified in that. So extremely proud of the work that they're doing, the way that they're dedicated to the quality of our online instruction. McConnell, we have a fairly new director, Erica, who she is a military spouse, so she knows the base well. She's very well connected there, and has really helped us as leaders connect with the leadership on base. So we have a new wing commander, and we also have a new flight chief on base. So we've been able to meet with them, establish some relationships, and they're also helping us navigate new opportunities to market our programs and market our classes on base. Our service center is also part of the McConnell team, because they go from the service center to the base. They fluctuate back and forth, but they don't only serve the McConnell staff and students. They actually, we shared in March, I believe it was, that service center staff and the enrollment team there have been able to enroll students at all of our Butler locations. And so they've been able to contribute to the tuition and fee revenue. And from March of 19 to March of 20, we had around $2 million in revenue generated from that enrollment center. Amy Shalene, who is our director at the Flint Hills sites, at Marion and Council Grove, they've done a great job in transitioning to remote, a rural area. Not all those students have access. And so she's very good at reading the needs of her communities. And one thing that we're particularly proud of from that site is that during COVID, with our allied health programs, most of the facilities across the state shut down. So we weren't able to get into those for our clinicals. And Amy and the allied health team worked with those facility partners, and we were able to get all of our students through clinicals without doing any sort of simulation or anything like that. So most of the colleges across the state did have to use simulation. So we were really proud that we were able to get our students through that clinical process. Additionally, Amy is very good about providing access for her students. So in those rural communities, we have very small class sizes. And Amy has been extremely innovative in trying to use technology even before COVID, but it's just heightened now. She uses Zoom to connect two classrooms together. So we might have two high schools that are connected, so that there's one instructor that's teaching both of those. And she's also now reached out to campuses like El Dorado. She's connected with McConnell. So she's really helping provide access for her students, but also helping us be smart in the way that we combine classes rather than teaching two separate sections. I think that our high school programs probably have been the most impacted by COVID, just because of the number of districts that we work with. And Lonnie's sitting back here. She's our director of high school academic partnerships. Our whole high school staff came together really well, and Donnie's going to talk about that in just a second. But I think one of the things, and in visiting with Lonnie, one of the things that we've learned is how critical it is for us to be in those high schools, doing that placement testing and the enrollment process face-to-face. Because when we can connect with those students, we better understand their needs. We're better able to connect them with the classes that they need to meet their educational goals. And so we're starting to see how critical that is when we look back at the fall enrollment process that we had to do virtually. And then now Lonnie is out in high schools and has been like all last week. She's out today and then all next week as well. So we're processing enrollments as they come in, and but just really critical to be able to be in front of those high school students. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Donnie to talk about the way that the high school team collaborated, and then also about the Early College Academy.
Thank you. Thank y'all for letting us present and hearing all about our department and what we're doing, our division and what we're doing. Yeah, so it goes without saying at this point, right? COVID-19 has really changed the landscape in a lot of ways and how we are working with our high schools. But with every challenge that came up, we were really ready to be agile and quick to figure out a way to solve those challenges. So the biggest one is like Heather already mentioned, how do we get in front of high schools? How do we get in front of students? How do we talk to students? We really shifted how we were doing marketing, how we were approaching those, and those conversations with students directly, but also with counselors leading up to it. We were in the high schools, we were doing open houses, but we had to shift that, and we had to figure out very quickly what was going to be, for lack of a better word, like the choke points for students in getting enrolled. Where were they going to get hung up? And so we had to come together and figure out whether it was early college academy or concurrent, where are they getting hung up at, and kind of rethink some of our processes. We also, as you can imagine, every high school has a different set of policies that they're dealing with, and we have to deal with a bunch of different high schools with all of these different policies. So one of the first things we did together was survey all of the different superintendents and counselors about their plans as they were making them kind of on the ground. And we became a repository of knowledge for other schools. They would come to us and say, what's this school doing, or how are they doing this? And so we became a center point for a lot of knowledge too around the county between the schools. We also quickly had to digitize our processes. I know Lonnie uses a lot of digitized processes, but in the academy, we had a much more like interview focused, a lot of paperwork that was done in an interview that was face-to-face. We had to quickly figure out how to digitize those processes. One of the biggest processes we had to figure out how to digitize, and one of the big points was testing. The testing part became difficult. So Lonnie and I, Lonnie knows more about this than me, trained me on testing very quickly, got going and figured out some solutions where we could find computer labs to get students in and test while keeping distancing, while doing all of this. So had to be really agile and turn quickly on that, but we still got well over 100 students in a matter of weeks tested that otherwise would not have been able to enroll across both concurrent and academy. We were just moving them in, and we're even able to, as happens, sometimes students don't pass the first time, it happens. We're able to find ways to even get them to test again so that we can ensure enrollment. It took a lot of work from Lonnie and I, and from the ECA staff to help out. Lisa Boland, who you saw earlier, was helping schedule and do a bunch of stuff. So we did that. And then finally, we've always worked closely with faculty development and helping train faculty who are teaching high school students. But a word to that, in that, without going too long into this, obviously the high schools have their own policies. And along this semester and the end of last semester, high schools were doing different things, and they were quarantining students. So we would have sometimes our students being quarantined at their high school, and then dealing with, we were doing social distancing and hybridizing classes and moving around. And our faculty really that are teaching the high school students, whether concurrent or academy, really have worked incredibly well with those students. We have, in the academy, I can speak to, we always have issues with students, in performance. We stay on top of them. We have some mechanisms to do that, but we have not had more this semester than in semesters past. And that is not anything we're doing. That's the faculty working with those students and kind of staying with them and working with all of the different things going on. So we've had a kind of wild year across high school. Academy specific, we've started a culinary program. We have 8 students in it right now that's running in Augusta. They get a lot of hands-on kitchen experience. When things slow down, please find a time to go out there and eat the food that they make, because it is delicious. We've also, we had to augment our graduation last year, but still with that, we graduated 83 students. And of those 83 students, they had last count, and it's a little bit higher than this, but we stopped counting after we had regular contact. So some of them, after they graduated, got more in. But at last count, it was $1.3 million just for those students to continue going to 4-year schools or other educational opportunities. Just something we track, and that's the highest it's been for our academy since we've started tracking that. So just a huge amount of money to help students continue their education that they're getting here. We also started a welding program. We have 10 students in that right now. It is a full-time program. They are getting certifications. I don't know much about welding, I won't lie, but they're getting their Cert A and Cert B. We have a great faculty member who's working really closely with those students, really building some relationships with them, because it's more than just a class with those students. It's really kind of helping them mature and learn who they are. So there's a lot going on there beyond just how to weld. And those students are loving it. 117 new students. We had 110 still return. So even amidst COVID, we still had a sizable amount of enrollment this year. Between last year and to this year, we held on to 94% of our students. So we had really high retention rate. One of the things that we do well in the academy is we do our personal development courses, similar to what we have across the institution. But we work very closely with students, juniors, as they come in. They're motivated, they're smart, but they don't always necessarily know what college is going to be. And so we use those courses to help teach them how to prepare for college, how to study, how to be college students. And that is, I think, a huge, and we have our directors do that in the academy. They, as part of their contract, part of their job, they're teaching those PD courses. It helps them build relationships with students, but I think it's one of the key points to why the academy is so successful and we have such high retention and graduation rates because of what we do in there. And finally, as you know, we're working this year towards the construction program. We did add a couple of new things over the last year. We've added a new engineering studies pathway in Andover. We added, we augmented our health sciences pathway that we are running in Rose Hill. We've added a different kind of version of that. So now we have 3 different cohorts of health sciences in Rose Hill, which is probably our largest academy and most well known. We may have to add another one. And we've also added another humanities pathway to Andover. It's something that's been really successful in Rose Hill, getting students in who kind of know what they want to do but need a little flexibility. We've also added that in Andover and seen an initial kind of success and jump with that this year already. I think 13 students, I'm going off the top of my head, in that pathway already. And that was kind of I think we're going to see quite a bit more in the years to come. But yeah, so thank you again. And that's the high school and academy stuff.
Yeah. We'd be glad to answer any questions if there are any.
Yeah, this is Shelby Smith. I had a couple questions for you. On page 6, and the 73 master courses and the additional 21, is that a course that we already have and you guys are putting online, or
Yes.
how's that work?
So the master course is, if they're developing it online, we use a master course system that allows a faculty member or a whole department to use that course. It's got the quality, it meets the HLCE, guidelines, it's got that accessibility, and then we can use that course for, let's say, if you came in and wanted to teach a class that was a master course, we can give you that master course shell.
Okay.
So it already meets those standards, and then you add to your content that way.
Okay, all right, that makes sense. I had a couple more for you.
Okay.
On pages 8 and 9, for both of these two schools, it said increased turnover in high school counselors. What does that mean? What do the high school counselors do?
You want to answer that?
Yeah, we see this regularly. Between year to year, we do see a number of counselors in the high schools move on, new counselors come on, old counselors leave. That creates new opportunities and new relationships, but it also creates some loss of knowledge there. So we're constantly kind of having to help counselors understand what we do, what we offer.
Are they just coordinating with the kids, with us to get?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Because that's really our biggest point of contact with students is counselors, right? They're seeing them day in and day out, and they can kind of. So we have to spend some time talking to counselors about what all we offer and what we, the opportunities that different students are going to have.
And the guidelines, that's particularly difficult. When Lonnie started in her role, we had 8 new counselors. So she's new, learning her role, coming from another institution. And so we had to teach her the guidelines, and then she had to go teach every counselor the guidelines. And so when you have that turnover, it's difficult to educate students too, because they're right there on the front lines with those students.
Okay. And my last question was the McConnell. It said fall of this year we had 417 credit hours, and last year we had 936, which is a 55% drop. Are these just high schoolers taking classes at McConnell, or are these total credit hours at McConnell? It's on page 12.
Yeah, the last page. We did have quite a drop at McConnell due to COVID and not having our service center we weren't even open. So we do think that COVID played into that. I have it here. So compared to, no, that's right. We do think that we had the drop from COVID. And I actually think I need to go back and look. I may have had a typo there. That 936 might be wrong. It might not be just fall. maybe more than one term.
Okay.
Yes.
I mean, it's hard to get on there anyway.
It
Yeah.
is, but
Yeah. Okay, and is this for high school learners only,
No,
or that's
this
total
is,
hours?
yeah. This is the credit hours on base. We do have some high school students that come on base to take classes, but
Yeah, I
it
just
is,
wanted to clarify.
no, it's not only high school.
All right, that's all I had. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, well, thank you both. I appreciate it. Sabbatical report from Carrie. Okay.
Hello, everyone. Is it possible for me to share my screen?
It's over my head.
Okay.
You have to ask Laura.
Okay. Just making sure. Okay, so I just have a quick report to do regarding my sabbatical, which, by the way, I very much appreciate the opportunity to be able to take the time off and do some research, because I haven't done research in, oh gosh, nearly 20 years. I was a part of a program called the CREST Project. This was actually a NSF funded project. And I did mine out of Johnson Community College with a cohort there, but we actually have a small group doing a similar project here. And if they continue, I may try to continue some of my research there as well. So my main goal of the sabbatical was to complete that project and to present some of the results, because that was part of the outline of finishing up the project as well. I was working with a online tool called Cerigo, and I was hoping to refine that for 2 of my courses, which I was successful in doing. And in the interim, I was also wanting to finish up 3 certifications, Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. And I was able to get all of those done by, I think I finished those in September of that sabbatical year. So I got those done pretty early, and those were incredibly helpful in helping me, especially with the analysis portion. The Excel was really, it was nice knowing the little tricks of Excel, but putting the presentation together, PowerPoint's always nice to know some tricks of that as well. So CREST stands for Community College Research and Education and Scholarly Teaching. And this is basically a training opportunity. They put you in cohorts, so you have peer groups that you can kind of bounce ideas off of and get their feedback and get an idea of whether or not your research is going in the right direction or not. It kind of reminded me of having an advisor when I was in grad school that I could kind of sit down and talk to and discuss moving forward with research and how things were going. And it was really nice to be able to do research, but also research that had an educational focus, because that's what this program is particularly about. It's not the kind of research that I was doing on plants in grad school, so that was super nice. So a little bit about Cerigo. You guys may have heard of it, may not have heard of it. I kind of serendipitously discovered Cerigo through a random email a few years ago and was encouraged to give it a try, and I really liked it. It utilizes an adaptive learning strategy that kind of focuses on what we know so far, at least, about how the brain and how we learn. So it's very repetitive, but it also will start to eliminate questions that students are doing really well with, and then put higher level questions in to replace those until they finally reach a set level. And the instructor gets to set that level as to how high you want your students to go. And you can change it. You can go all the way up to 3. For my initial, I went to 1.5, and then for the second semester that I tried this, I went all the way to 2.0. What we do know is if you don't repeat something, you don't retain it. So even if you do learn something, you basically are going to forget it, and most of that's going to be forgotten within a month. Well, one of the things that we have with our anatomy and physiology program, and we're really moving into this with a lot of our courses, is a comprehensive final at the end of the semester, and students tend to not do all that great on it. So I was hoping implementing this tool would really help with that. Previous institutions have already done some data collection in terms of using this tool, and very, very effective. Arizona State University has this Global Freshman Academy, and they looked at the health and wellness course as well as an astronomy course and saw significant improvements with the utilization of this software. And then the University of Hawaii at Manoa also saw a 12-point increase with every increase in the retention status that Saraga uses. And again, that's set by the instructor. So I decided to try it out with my own course and found out that there was a significant improvement specifically on that final, the comprehensive final. And I looked at this specifically with the second semester, the BI 227. BI 227 is the second semester of anatomy and physiology. And at this point in time, by the time I was using this, this program, students need to have passed with a C or above the 226 course, the Anatomy and Physiology 1, in order to be able to enroll in BI 227. So that was kind of helpful as well, and one of the reasons that I focused on this group rather than both of them as a whole. So essentially, I saw nearly a 10% improvement in scores from the non-Sarago to the utilization of the Sarago since before and after. So that was really exciting. I did find a couple of other things because the first time I used Sarago, I kind of went with the kind of just their stock for anatomy and physiology. And some of it really didn't apply to our outcomes. So in 2019 or 2018, I started utilizing it. In 2019, I made it better. And in 2020, I basically spent my sabbatical time making it like outstanding for this course, and updated the 226 as well in case I wanted to start adding that information in. And I did see this nice little curve, although it wasn't significant, that, and this was kind of across the board. This is the Unit 1 exam. But I really saw the same trend for every single unit exam, where it was this slight upward trend, but not enough to really be significant. What I did see, but I think it's this one outlier right here. In the prior version, before it had been updated the first go around, there was almost a downward curve in that score in terms of the amount of time that they spent. One thing that I did find is, and this was in the updated version, but again, prior to the implementation with the time that I had spent with my sabbatical, there's kind of this Goldilocks zone where if they spent an average amount of time on it, they seemed to do best. If they spent too little time, they didn't do all that well. If they spent too much time on it, it really didn't seem to help them out either. So there's this prime, and there's a lot of research that indicates that that's kind of a part of the way that we study as well. I had planned on presenting my results, and I had actually had a poster presentation accepted at SABRE, and that was supposed to happen over the summer. And in May, I was supposed to present at the HAPS conference, which is the Human Anatomy and Physiology Conference. And I was also going to, in April, I was going to post at Second Saturday and an IDD, but that of course has all been canceled. I didn't have the opportunity to present at any of these things because every single one of those was canceled as a result of COVID. So that was kind of disappointing. The HAPS one was in, I was in Canada, so I was pretty excited to go to that one and really disappointed when that was kind of closed down. So, and I am, as a result of COVID, experiencing a continuation of problems. Number one, we did not, so I put all that time in revamping the Sarago program to get some data for spring of 2020. And as a result of moving everything online, we decided not to give the cumulative exam because we were worried about maintaining the integrity of that exam in an online environment. So the students did not have a cumulative exam and I did not get data. So I'm really disappointed about that. And the data from this semester, although it's going to apply to a different course, same kind of issue. We had some, well, the biggest issue is just that students are in kind of a new scenario and they're having difficulty just getting through. So I'm not sure how much the cumulative exam is really going to tell me about their retention anyways. But we didn't end up using Cerigo. We moved to the McGraw-Hill all-inclusive access package. And as a result, I did not want to, especially with the financial hardships that students were experiencing this summer and into this fall semester, I didn't want to ask them to pay for more products. So I moved to McGraw-Hill's software, which I do not like as much. It's very hard for me to fine tune it on my end and really gear it towards my particular coursework. And it doesn't have the repetitive function that I really, really liked about Cerigo. So I'm a little bummed. I feel like everything's kind of on pause at this point, and that's kind of it. You all have any questions?
Doesn't sound like, or doesn't look like, Carrie, that there are any questions.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. I spoke too soon. Go ahead, Julie. Oh, okay. Speak into your microphone for me, please. Thank you.
Let me just try to hold this in my lap.
There you go.
How do you think not having that cumulative exam? I wish I could look at her face.
Oh, yeah. Let's stop screen sharing so we can see you, Carrie. Okay.
Yes, certainly.
I really would like to know how not having the cumulative exam might have affected our education. And I guess from that perspective, does that affect long-term, any kind of long-term credibility that we have in not having those scores available to see student progress? Or am I just way off base and asking why we would drop such a thing?
The reason that we dropped it was in that inline environment when we kind of shoved everything online last semester. Honestly, though I couldn't prove it, I feel like there was a lot of loss of integrity across the board in terms of online testing. So I definitely did not want that occurring on the online version of the comprehensive final. That I would rather have taken no final than a final that a bunch of students cheated on in order to get through it. So we kind of had to do what we had to do in that situation. We had to do the best that we possibly could. And as a department, we just decided to drop the final rather than put it online. And it's a final that we've really worked hard as a department to come to this group of questions that we can ask from semester after semester after semester. And the last thing that we wanted to do was put that in an online environment where students could print it off and pass it around and maybe post it to websites and make it available later on. So I can't speak to what it does in terms of, I know that I've taught them all of those things that they would have shown me, hopefully, their knowledge of on the comprehensive final. But in terms of needing that as an end all be all for them to finish the course in the environment that they were in, I just don't see it being a major necessity.
We don't, Julie, just so you're aware too, we don't offer or have comprehensive finals in every course across the college. That's really left up to the department as a decision, and sometimes the individual. I guess if the department makes a decision, then the department does it, but sometimes it ends up being the individual faculty decision as well. So we don't typically offer comprehensive finals in everything that we do.
So Julie, to kind of add to that, I'll be really happy to get back to adding that comprehensive final in. I do think is an important tool, but I think in the current environment, and this even continues today, I think it's very low on our list of priorities.
Have you run any analysis yourself for your department on the system honor lock that I saw mentioned in my board packet?
I have not used the honor lock personally. And I don't know if anybody in the department has run any analytics on that. I'd like to see it. But I know that it was kind of, from my, and again, this is not personal. I have no actual information coming this from personal usage, but they're kind of glitches all around is what I was understanding. So hopefully they make that better and then we can be a little bit more secure in what we do put online.
Are you talking about the honor lock software itself?
I think I'm not really sure. What I heard was that there were just kind of glitchy things going on. I'm not sure if it was the honor lock or if the implementation of the honor lock. I don't really know. I didn't use it.
Lori can speak to honor lock when we have time to talk about it. We did, Shannon Covert, Associate Dean, did a lot of research on best opportunities for online proctoring and testing, and honor lock was the one that created the most kind of comprehensive control of that online testing environment that we had to have. So we can get some additional information for you from Lori. So, you can ask her some questions.
The math department primarily utilized honor lock because they have departmental finals in each of the math modules, and they wanted to try to secure their online exams, much to what Carrie has just mentioned, because they spend a lot of time and energy creating those exams. They don't want it printed or the file to be downloaded and shared out on websites, which is very common. The honor lock itself uses artificial intelligence, plus they record the proctoring session so that the faculty member can go back and review the recording and look for, and the artificial intelligence flags certain behaviors that helps the instructor know which segment in the recording to go back and look at. Occasionally, students had some problems getting that software to work successfully, but most of the instructors in the math department were trained and were able to help their students. Sometimes it's just the students' capabilities, and perhaps if they have an old computer with an old web browser, sometimes those create some issues. So a lot of technology, and I think honor lock's better than having nothing at all, but I think those systems will improve down the road. The other thing I would mention is KBOR has a task force that's evaluating various remote testing platforms, and they will be making a decision. I don't know exactly when, but this fall they've been working on a statewide contract, and Shannon Covert is serving on that task force to help evaluate the potential programs that they're considering.
Thanks, Lori.
This is Shelby Smith. I had a quick question. I know on page 19 at the very bottom it said honor lock software for fall subscription. Is that $60,000 per semester?
Well, can we come back to that when we talk about the CARES funding? Would that be okay? Anybody have any other questions for Carrie while she's still online?
Thanks for the time.
Thanks, Carrie.
Sure thing.
You did a great
Thank
job.
You, Thanks.
Yeah, great job.
Thank you, Carrie.
I like that picture behind you too of that dog.
Isn't he cute? I love that guy. He makes me smile.
Yeah.
Y'all have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to the strategic discussion, issues and opportunities. We have a presentation by the CARES team as to where the funding's going. And
right.
Jamie doing that?
Yeah, Jamie Garing, I think, and Kim Sherwood. I thought it would be beneficial to just have them do an overview for you at this point in time of the different federal stimulus funding sources that we have had. Some of that federal money has come, well, all of the money has come from the federal level. Some of it has come directly to the institution. Some of it has come through the state, through the state Spark task force. Some of it was came from the federal level to the state Spark task force, to the county level, to the institutions. There's all kinds of, some of it was FEMA money. So I thought it would be beneficial to have Jamie kind of just, and Kim Sherwood kind of just do a review of those pots of money, very specific guidelines on how it could be spent. Couldn't just be plunked into the operational budget. And so very specific guidelines. So I think Jamie's probably online there, and Kim probably is as well, maybe.
Yep, I am here. Good evening. Thanks for having the CARES team. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Wanted to kind of talk about kind of what CARES team is comprised of as far as membership, and then kind of talk through each of our funding sources. The CARES team is pretty diverse across the administration staff. So there's members from our IS department, our IR department, finance, accounting. We do have public safety. Trying to think of who, I don't want to leave anyone off. We've got the financial aid people with Heather Ward, and also Kim, who am I maybe forgetting? Oh, facilities, most important, facilities, right? Ireland and Lynn. And so each week on Wednesday mornings, we meet in order to go through kind of where our funding sits in the weekly scheme of things, and to review any requests that have come in since the week prior. And so when we go through that, we always start out with kind of this summary. And one thing, kind of like Dr. Kroll had stated, there's some pretty extensive requirements for the funding. And what we have learned very quickly is that they are constantly changing. So we think we can do one thing and we start moving down a path, and then we get some information back and it kind of sends us in another direction. And so tracking these funds has been a little bit difficult, but we're making it through, and we're up to date on all of our reporting, and those are all available either via Butler's website, and or those are submittals that we make to the Department of Education and to the other funding agencies such as Butler County, and they're posting those things on their websites per their requirements. So with that, I will kind of go into each of our funding sources. The first two listed on the summary are the CARES funding. The student funding was given to us as federal money, and we have awarded that out to students based on a review process with Heather Ward's team. There are a few checks yet to be cashed by some of our students, and so we are kind of waiting to see if there's going to be additional funds that we can allocate to students who were impacted by COVID last semester, but we don't know that yet because there is a time frame on getting those checks cashed. And so we're kind of waiting and in that holding pattern until that the void date, so to speak, on some of those checks. The note there is that Heather's team is reaching out to all those students who have not cashed those checks to make sure that they've received them and that they're aware of any deadlines for those finances to be available to them. The institutional funding, you'll notice it's in the same amount as the student aid funding. One of our requirements with the institutional funding is it's a 1-for-1 match with the student aid funding. So if we do not spend all of our student aid, we cannot spend all of our institutional aid. We have to spend in the same dollar amounts, or we're unable to be in compliance with the institutional portion of the grant. And so you can see there's still some balance left to allocate, and Kim's going to touch on that a little bit later from some revenue sources that we were going to allocate and that we had talked about as a CARES team, that there's a new informational document that comes out. And because of the type of institution that Butler is, we do not qualify for revenue loss expenses through the institutional funding. And so we will be going back through as a team tomorrow and looking to reallocate some of those funds. The Spark funding was through Butler County. Those were all reimbursable expenses, and those were primarily for cleaning supplies and for some technology need that was brought to us by the IS department. And so with that money, we were able to fund a lot of our personal protective equipment and a lot of our health and safety issues, or a lot of our health and safety equipment through that grant. For the county, we upload all of those invoices into an ongoing smart sheet that the county then takes and publishes per their grant requirements. And then the CRF fund was kind of what they're calling a second round of the Spark funding. That one, Butler chose to focus primarily on technology to enhance the online learning for remote students especially, but for all students at Butler. And then you'll note that FEMA does not have any money associated with it yet. The reason being is that in talking with our FEMA representative, they have made it clear that they are kind of a last resort for funding, and they are very, very restrictive in what they will fund. So if it's not PPE, for the most part, they're not funding it. And we do have to use all of our other funding resources before we're even able to apply for FEMA funding. So we're kind of on hold with them as well. We have bi-weekly check-ins with our FEMA rep just to let them know that, hey, we're still going through our current funding sources, and we're still getting some requests in. As we get requests in that we may not be able to fund with our prior sources, we're making sure to ask questions on if they're FEMA eligible expenses so that we can kind of allocate accordingly. At the bottom of this summary sheet, you'll see that there's some other relief grants. We have applied or looked at, considered most of those grants. Many grants associated with COVID were for childcare. And so you'll see that many of them we didn't end up applying for due to the closing of Educare. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Kim and have some conversation about our institutional funding, specifically related to the revenue losses.
Yes. Hello, everyone.
I think Jamie, Shelby has a question real quick.
Shelby Smith.
Sure. Hi.
Hey, on the childhood grants that we missed out on, do you know what those would have totaled, or we would have had access to?
So the grant amounts ranged pretty heavily. They were all reimbursement based, and so it's really hard to give a direct number for that, but I can send some more information on kind of what those ranges would have been.
My understanding, Shelby, when I talked to the director at the state level about some of these, were that they were short term. They weren't continuing or sustaining grants, but they were shorter term that would have, like for instance, for healthcare workers that still had their children in childcare during the spring, during COVID, they would have covered those expenses for those people if we had frontline workers and healthcare workers that had their kids in childcare, or if they had to seek other childcare, but they weren't any kind of sustaining operational grants. That was kind of the information that I got from the state level on those funding sources.
Okay.
So,
all right, thank you.
Yeah, a lot of them focused.
Go ahead, Jamie. I'm sorry.
No, I was gonna say a lot of those did focus on kind of the health and safety of the students, as well as Dr. Kroll said, providing care for essential employee, children of essential employees. So they were not ongoing type grants. They wouldn't be along the line of like our C Campus grant, where that's a multi-year grant. They were kind of a one-off as needed for different child care aspects.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, so looking at a little bit more detail on the CARES institutional funding, just wanted to talk a little bit about this section because what we originally sent out to you has changed a little bit. Like Jamie said, sometimes the information that we get changes, so we have to go back and make adjustments in order to make sure that we're following the guidelines. We had allocated some funds to some of the CARES funds to some revenue losses Particularly, you can see the yellow highlighted items on the screen. And just a second, let me get the same place on my side. So the highlighted items in yellow, where we have athletic gate receipts, room rental, revenue, etc., testing center, athletic concessions, and bookstore, soft goods, revenue losses. Those were actually losses that were incurred because the college was closed. And so what we did was we looked at the revenue we received last year and compared to this year and determined what that revenue loss was. Like I said, originally we were under the impression and understanding that we could allocate funds to those losses, but we are not able to. So that is about $39,000 in that first section there. So our team's going to go back tomorrow and look at reallocating those dollars to items that do qualify. The orange section there, the child care services revenue loss, we do feel like we could possibly still, that would still be eligible for CARES funding. And this is where it gets really interesting, and we have to communicate really carefully with the Department of Education as well as our auditors to make sure that we are interpreting the guidelines the way that we should be. But in revenue loss instances, and this is where some of the confusion has come in for some institutions, is we can't actually allocate revenue to ourselves, which is how we initially had understood it. But you can allocate direct expenditures that were potentially, impacted by the revenue loss. So, for example, with the child care services, we did lose revenue because we were closed in FY20, and that was before we officially closed down the EduCare at the end of June. So we did lose revenue of about $130,000. But we can't allocate ourselves any CARES funds for that amount. What we can do is we can go back and look at the expenses that were still being, what we were spending during that time that we were closed, and we can look at reimbursing ourselves for those expenses. So for the month of April, May, and June, and part of March, those expenses for the EduCare Center, since it was closed, we can allocate funding towards those. I'm in the process of gathering that information as well as working with our auditors to ensure that this is something that we can do for these CARES funds. But I wanted to bring you guys up to speed because, like I said, we reported it a little bit differently when we sent this information out. That changed last week. So we just kind of wanted to give you a little bit more detail on that piece. So if there's any questions, hopefully I kind of explained that. It's not too confusing to you, but if there's any questions, I would be happy to try to answer them.
This is Shelby Smith again. I had a couple questions on Bill Young's stuff that we've budgeted but haven't spent yet. I know we're looking at spending some of that tonight, but I don't understand the hotspots, and then there's one of them here about telephones.
Sure. So during the time of being closed and also during this time now with COVID, we have several employees, especially during the time that we were closed. We had several employees that were not able to get good internet connections. And so those hotspots are for some employees who they don't have another alternative. Either the connection that they can get is not strong enough, or they don't have the capability, or some reason like that. So those are the hotspots. that is carrying over into the current semester and could continue forward a little bit as well, because we do have employees that qualify for working from home because of COVID circumstances. So those are the hotspots. What was the other one that you said? I'm sorry.
Well, I think I'm going to get into it a little bit in the consent agenda. So
okay.
Just about the chat bot.
Okay. And I think is Bill on here? Did I answer that? Was there anything else you wanted to add on the hotspots?
Yeah, so in addition to some of the staff that don't have internet access, when we have a student that has to quarantine or whatever and doesn't have that access, we're doing what we can to provide that as well. And so we've utilized hotspots for students, staff, and faculty that have needed that connectivity to be able to complete their classes or to do their, from a staff and faculty perspective, to do their job, or from a student's perspective, to be able to complete their classes and have successful connectivity. There's realization that some of this remote access right now is a challenge, and we have a significant number of students that don't have dependable internet connections. They generally come to school and use our devices at the college and use our infrastructure at the college to be able to connect. So we've been able to help quite a few students. They submit the request through the process to get that access, and then we get those back when they're done quarantining or whatever.
Question?
All right, thank you.
Bill?
Yes.
This is Trustee Winslow. I had a question. How many hotspots are we talking about here? The only hotspots that I'm really familiar with the most is probably my phone. So are we talking about phones that we've purchased, and how many student and how many faculty are we talking about here?
So,
what kind of device? That's a three-part question.
I got you. Yes, ma'am. So we have, in our deal with Verizon, we don't actually purchase the hotspots. They're little jet packs, so they operate on a cellular network.
Used to have one.
Yeah, exactly. So it's the same thing. We don't purchase them. We pay for them while they're activated. So Verizon provides them. So at any given time, just depending on who's using them, we could have anywhere from 5 of them activated up to, I think we've got about 40 or 45 of them in stock right now that we could activate, and use. I couldn't tell you right now how many are out today. Those are all handled through our service desk, and when somebody needs one, they're checked out. But we've got a significant number that are out to kind of on a semi-permanent basis with some staff and faculty that are working from home, or with students that are educating from home because of COVID. And so that's, I guess, I don't know how to better answer it. I think we've got 50 on hand, but they're not all activated today. So as we activate them, we pay for that month's worth of service, and then if we deactivate it, and so forth.
Yeah, Verizon is very good at billing for service. So I'm sure we do pay for them. I guess my question is, additionally, is how long do we anticipate this? I mean, I have nothing against the students receiving hotspots or the employees and so forth and so on, but boy, I can't imagine any circumstance where I would have ever gotten that same treatment, even at work. But not saying that it's not possible and not likely, and other companies haven't done this, but it just seems like a pretty horrendous expense. And I wondered if we're going to have to carry this forward, and if there were any other alternatives looked at other than a hotspot to provide educational services during this hopefully short term with COVID, or do you think this is going to go on forever? Is this an expense we're looking at continuing forever? You said we already have 50 on hand. We've gotten an additional 40, 45, I guess. So we have maybe 100 now.
Yeah, and remember, right now, this is being covered by all the federal stimulus money.
Well,
so
I understand that,
coming out of our
that's only
operational budget.
now. It's only covered now.
So to answer your question, Julie, I would say this. So the first thing that we did when the college went remote in the spring is we did luckily procured some hotspots to kind of help us through that piece. Cox Communications, AT&T, they had some deals in place both for work, like for staff and faculty, and also for students, kind of that was income based, that said, if you've got a student that needs access in this time of COVID, they could, extend Cox internet as long as it was available in their area to their house for like $10 a month. I mean, so we really tried to leverage as much of that as we could and put that back on employees and the students. There are some areas where there's just, and as you know, there's some areas where there's just not connectivity, whether it's via Cox or whatever. And so those are kind of the pieces that we've looked at. Since then, some of those special deals that like Cox had going early on in the COVID pandemic, those have gone by the wayside. So we have some students, again, that are using it. I don't personally anticipate this being a permanent solution. I think that once COVID is behind us and we've got people back to work and we kind of enter back into some semblance of normalcy, I anticipate, having some emergency solutions for those people that apply through our care team for help and assistance. But outside of that, we don't have the funding or the budget to continue this in perpetuity. Some of our neighboring colleges, like Emporia State, when they went remote in the spring, they provided access, whether it was hotspots or a Cox or Cablevision connectivity to any of their students that requested it. And so we were, like I said, we were fortunate to be able to get some in. And we got our first shipment of hotspots in from Verizon, and then as soon as that happened, they had something like 1.5 million of them on back order. So they were.
Well, I'm really glad that we're not considering that as a permanent.
No, I don't.
Expense.
And Bill, this is Shelby again. My only 2 cents that I want to throw in before we did all this, I appreciate the government money, and I know we've got to use it or lose it. But like the laptops on page 22, we've got $225,000 available to us to loan out if we need to. I just don't want 2 or 3 years from now to have that be part of our normal, what we consider just our stuff. I want to keep in the back of our mind that the government gave us $225,000 to help us out, not that now we own 600 more laptops that we've got to update.
Oh, sure. So no,
I just want to keep that, in the back of our head in the future.
Absolutely. And we've got an annual.
Now it's
I'm sorry about that, Shelby. Sorry.
No, go ahead. I'm done.
I say we've got an annual PC replacement and fund or amount that we have to do every year to make sure that our hardware is up to date. And we were sure that as we bring in laptops that we're moving out some of our other desktops and things. So we're not doubling. I guess to your point, we're not doubling up on the number of total devices that we have. We're replacing some desktops with some mobile devices that then will be in our regular rotation. So there's not that increased expense of like doubling up on the number of devices.
Yeah, and I would prefer not to just say, hey, we're allocated, 500 Chromebooks, so it's December 17th and we order the other 300 we need or that we can legally get. And then 3 years from now, it's like, well, we have to have 500 Chromebooks every couple of years to use our budget. That's all I'm.
Sure,
that's all
I got you. I understand that.
Plus, I was going to ask you, Bill, if you don't mind me asking, was there no other alternative? I mean, I suppose all the libraries everywhere were closed and all the coffee shops and so forth.
For connectivity? No, I mean, Trustee Winslow, in the spring, there really was no other alternative because libraries, coffee shops, to your point, I mean, even McDonald's in El Dorado, the lobby was closed, right? And so again, when you look at it from a student side, from the student's view, a lot of students come on campus just to get the connectivity, even if they have their own device, maybe their own laptop or Chromebook.
Oh, I remember.
iPad. So everything was closed. And so at the time, no, there wasn't really an alternative. Today, there's a little bit more availability, but even those places still have, a lot of them have capacity concerns. And so then you got some student that may be driving around to coffee shops trying to find a place that, isn't at capacity that they can go sit down and do their work. So.
And there's places that student can come here with their own laptop if they have enough power and so forth and park in a parking lot, are there not, to get access to the internet?
Yeah, we've got border-to-border wireless at Butler Community College. So if they came and sat in the parking lot,
you haven't even ever do that?
we had a lot of students doing that. If you're around campus in the summertime, there was a lot of students sitting in the parking lot or sitting on the steps over at the stadium, using that wireless, trying to get connectivity.
Just curious.
Yeah, thanks for the questions. Kim, do you have, or Jamie, do you have other information you need to share with us so we can finish this up and move on?
Do not.
Dr. Kroll, did Shelby have a question about the honor lock?
Oh, yeah.
I was just curious. I know it's being paid for now with CARES money, but is that a new expense, and are we going to incur that every semester or forever after this?
Well, it was an expense that came about initially because of COVID. However, I do think that we'll have some kind of an arrangement through the state contract. I don't have a timeline on that yet. Shannon said they met last week and they're going to meet next week to select a potential contract for a statewide contract. Honor Lock offered a special price over the summer, and we had a contract towards the probably at the last third of the spring semester through the summer, where they offered a special contract at a price of $5 per test. When that contract ended, it ended like the middle of August. We worked with Honor Lock to get a fall contract in place. And they decided to allow us to have a short-term contract, but the price went up to $650 per test. But we only get billed for what we actually use. So if we only use half of those tests, that's all we will be billed for. My worry is that we may need to extend it into the spring contract or into the spring semester a bit, because the state contract may not be in place yet. And so Shannon and Amy Kirshner are the two that worked on it here at Butler. We'll see if Honor Lock, if we have unused seats from this fall contract, if they would just allow us to have a extended end date on our current contract.
So Lori, you can give us, why don't you plan to give us an update when you know a little bit more from KBOR? I know Jim has to jump off here at 7 because he has an obligation. So if it's okay with everybody, I'm going to suggest that we continue to, to move on, and we'll keep you posted and updated on the continued expenses on the CARES funding. A lot of these funds have to be expended by the 30th of December. That's part of the requirement. So
I don't mind extending them. I just don't incur future expenses.
Yeah,
I understand that.
And
Sure.
unfortunately, we don't really have a place on the agenda ever where board members can come and say, hey, I visited such and such facility and blah, blah, here's how it went. Or hey, I have a question regarding what I'm about to ask now. So I have to put it in this. And so we can't go on until I ask. Campus software coordinator, speaking to Shelby's concerns, do we have a software coordinator? I was actually once one years and years ago at a company, and every piece of software bought, with the exception of our large Cray machine, had to come through one person. And that one person was responsible for the justification, the expenditures, everything. So I just wonder, do we have that?
IS manages all of that. All of the software purchases and the review all come through a team at IS. I mean, if academics has something or student services has something that they want to purchase, there are folks in IS that review the, all of the guidelines of the software, make sure that it integrates, make sure it's accessible, and then help very often with negotiating the cost of that software. We've got a person in IS that is our contract negotiator. And so all of that really flows through Bill and his team if we're purchasing software. People don't do it one-off because there's too many things that it has to integrate with now.
Do we have any place where we keep a list of software that we have bought for special purposes that we don't anticipate to continue in the future? But,
I would have to ask Bill. Bill would have to put that list together.
These are getting more expensive. What I would say that I guess one of the things on that list might be what he's talking about here on this CARES list, anything we have to buy temporarily for COVID-19.
I can sure ask Bill and his team to try and put a list of software together. I'm sure it's very extensive, but you know, there would be some where we would have annual repeated licensing and, you know, costs, but there are a few things that are kind of one-offs right now that we
Right.
don't know whether they'll be extended or not, but
Okay, well, you understand what
Yeah,
we're
sure.
asking, so.
sure. Thank you, everybody, for your input. Jamie and Kim, you guys are doing a great job on the CARES team, and lots of moving parts and lots of documentation you have to keep track of. So I appreciate your work on that.
Thank you. Have a great evening.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the report. We'll move on to the board action items that were moved from the consent agenda. First one being the approval of the minutes from October 13th of 2020. Do you have a motion to approve?
Did you get them changed?
Second.
I would like to add that verbiage I emailed you guys about. I just, near the end of the meeting last month, after we did that, I made a comment that I thought the welding table was too expensive, and then we didn't get any other bids. And, you know, we were presented the fact that there was nothing else like it available online, which there was. And I also mentioned that I thought the bus lease was too expensive, and I just wanted that entered into the minutes. So I sent an email with the verbiage that I said at hour 23 minutes into the meeting last time.
Did we enter that into the minutes?
That's what I'm trying to ask now.
Well, not yet, because it has to be voted on whether it needs to be, whether the
Well, we
minutes
got
need to
the
be
minutes on
changed.
the floor as to be approved, and
Well, that's what I'm
That's
asking
what the
to add right
motion
now,
is right now.
I'd like to approve it with the addition of those two things I said.
You guys have to vote on it. The board has to vote on changes to the minutes. Or
Right.
approval
So
of minutes, I should say.
Shelby, do you have a motion that you're saying that you would like to amend the minutes as written to include?
Amend the minutes to include those two things I mentioned.
Okay, we have a second.
second?
We have a pending motion already.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear it. I'm not picking up everybody very well here. So was there a previous motion to approve it as written?
And a
Jim,
second.
Yeah, Jim,
And a
there was
second.
yes, there
Okay.
was a first motion to approve the minutes and a second. And that's when Shelby then asked that his information be added to that section of the minutes. So there's
Okay.
actually a motion on the table right now to just approve the minutes.
I'm sorry, Kim. I can hear some people's voices, but not others very well on
Yeah,
this
that's
link.
fine.
But anyway, yeah, so there's a motion and a second to approve the minutes as written. Any further discussion?
I think
Okay, we need to call for roll call.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
well, Forrest is talking, Jim, here.
Okay, I'm sorry.
It's okay. I mean, to Shelby's point, the concern that I have with this is the purpose of the consent agenda is to approve things without discussion.
Correct.
So by adding individual points that address only one side of the issue, it to me leaves an inaccurate record that suggests the board just willy-nilly decided things without considering the issues, when in fact we process this the way the rules provide. If we wanted to address those issues, then it should have been taken out of the consent agenda so that we could have addressed it and had all the information brought forward to address the points that you're trying to make right now, Shelby. So
And I got an email requesting that.
I'm not in favor of amending the minutes to reflect one side of an issue that's going to leave the minutes, in my view,
The
misleading.
minutes are just what was said. It was a comment that was made in the minute.
But it's a summary of what was. It's not. There's no question the comment was made, and that comments are protected in the archive of the meetings that we have. At some point, our minutes have to be limited because it's not meant to be a transcript of every word that's spoken at the meeting.
I don't know, I get a lot of stuff in there that's word for word. Somehow gets in there about anything I say.
So that's the concern I have, is that if we wanted a full broadside 360-degree discussion of these issues, it should have been taken out of the consent agenda so that Dr. Kroll or whoever was there. I'm sorry.
Discussion. That's what I did at the beginning. I had that removed from the consent agenda.
Yes.
So to discuss it.
But it wasn't. We
It
approved
wasn't.
it. No, the minutes were removed tonight, but we're talking about the discussion about the issues you're raising.
No,
We're not
last month,
taken
no,
out
I
of the
did it
consent.
wrong. Yeah.
They
just-
weren't taken out. So we don't get the benefit of hearing the justification for why the issues were proposed the way they were. So to amend the minutes right now to simply reflect that there were concerns that when someone reads the minutes are going to appear that these concerns went unaddressed, when in fact there wasn't a mechanism to address them because they were part of the consent agenda. That's my concern. I don't disagree that you made the comments you made.
Right. I understand where you're coming
But I'm not in favor of amending the minutes to selectively add one part of one side of an issue.
I would like to hear from Mr. Law then. He is the secretary clerk type on the board, responsible for the minutes. I would at least like his opinion for what it's worth, I guess. I mean, I would like his opinion. Is he not responsible for the minutes indirectly somehow? Even if it's just to proofread and agree and consent?
Well,
I type the minutes.
Right,
month,
but is
and
that not his
they're
official
They're
position?
approved at the meeting. There isn't any. He doesn't. I mean, he sees them just like you do.
yeah,
Well, what does he do then for that? For that position?
he helps sign contracts and those kinds of things.
Well, okay. Yeah, I guess I misunderstood. I thought he was totally had to consent to these before they could.
They
even
come to
be
you guys for approval as a
released.
whole.
He doesn't get them first?
No.
Huh.
No.
Okay.
No, they come, Laura types them, and oftentimes she sends them to me to look at real quickly. She puts them in the board agenda for approval at the next meeting by all of the board.
Is there a place where I can read what that position does?
Yes, go right back to your board bylaws in your board orientation manual.
And hey, Jim, did we skip something here and go from 9 to 10, the consent agenda, without addressing the things that I pulled?
No, we're getting to those.
No, we're just taking them. We're just taking them in order, Shelby.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, they've already put a motion in a second.
Well, let's just vote and get on with this thing. So you got
Call for a roll. If there's no further discussion, Lori, you want to call the vote?
Sure. Trustee Good.
No, wait. Please tell me, are we just voting on A? Because he did select to pull A.
Yes.
Yes.
They're doing separately.
That's the motion.
Okay. Okay.
As
Thank
they're
you.
written.
Thank you.
Okay. Trustee Good.
She's
You're
not been
muted,
here for a
Trustee
while.
Good.
You're muted, Mary Martha.
You know, that's the most popular saying these days. You're muted. My vote is yes.
Trustee Law.
Yes.
Trustee Lechtenberg.
Yes.
Trustee Rhodes.
Yes.
Trustee Smith.
No.
Trustee Winslow.
No.
The motion passes 4-2.
Okay, let's move on to the next item, which is C, bids and purchases for the virtual desktop infrastructure. Do I have a motion to approve that?
So moved.
You could, oh yeah, sorry.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, further discussion.
Okay, we're talking about B.
This is the,
Talking about C.
I was just addressing Bill again. This is what I just wanted to talk about before we do. I understand this is what we're doing now with CARES Fund. I just want to address the fact that I don't want to pay for all this stuff that we normally wouldn't necessarily do without the enticement of free money right now. In the future, I want to keep that, in the back of our heads that this is not something we have to continue when it's no longer being paid for us.
Page 53, Julie.
Sure, I'm happy to respond or offer some commentary if you'd like.
Sure.
So what the CARES funds have allowed us to do is the initiation of this process, the implementation and the build out of a virtual desktop infrastructure, where we recognize as we proceed forward in the coming years in maintaining the virtual desktop infrastructure, that money will to maintain that comes from the ability to reduce our PC replacement fund. So if we have a virtual desktop infrastructure, I can stretch the life of a computer from 4 years, where we've got them set now to replace computers every 4 years. I can stretch that life of a computer to 7 or 8 years because we're actually utilizing a virtual computer on servers. And so I'm able to recognize that savings. What's prevented us from doing this in the past is this initial startup cost. And so COVID is actually, or the COVID relief funds are helping us with the startup cost that then we'll be able to maintain as we move forward without seeing any increase in the budget for it. Did that make any sense?
No, I get it. It starts 18 grand to start it, and then we're going to be paying another 50 grand per year to implement it forever.
We'll
But it seems
pay
to
the
be like-
$50,000. Yes, sir. We'll pay the $50,000 this year for implementation, the design piece for the $18,000 from CDW, and then the implementation. Then as we move forward, it just becomes licensing that I then am able to reduce that amount from my PC replacement fund to make up that difference. So there's no net new money after we do the build and implementation, which I wouldn't be able to reduce
where
in
it
the
says
future.
at the bottom
I'm sorry.
that the second application for a cost of $37,000 per year.
Right.
So that's an additional cost every year.
That's a cost for VDI each year that is reduced then by that 37. My PC replacement cost is reduced by at least that much every year because I don't have to replace those computers every year.
So
I'm
it'll
able
be
to
a wash.
Pardon me?
So it'll be a wash or a little
Yeah,
bit.
yeah,
That's why I
there's
just want to pull this so I could, discuss it. And understand
I totally understand that. There's no net new money for this after we get it implemented with the license.
Well, that's where I'm coming from. So if that's the case, that sounds great to me.
Yes, sir.
So
Any other questions?
So what do you get?
Any other questions or comments?
Was wondering what Mr. Young might be going to do with his windfall.
Paying for VDI. I mean, there's no, I don't know what that means with my windfall, but when we're the ability.
Because you're going to replace computers that you otherwise would have had to
Right.
replace out of your own budget.
Right. We're going to use that money to pay for this licensing so that we can then expand to things beyond just PCs. The challenge that we have today is the only thing that we can use on campus are PCs or Mac Apple computers. We've got a significant number of students that are coming to campus with iPads, with tablet, Samsung, Google tablets, or with Chromebooks, and those don't connect. And using the virtual desktop infrastructure, we're able to now connect all those devices. So those students that are coming with the less expensive devices, they're able to connect and utilize our system. Additionally, I don't have to, again, like I said, I don't have to replace as many computers each year. A and B, we can also start buying less when we do have to replace them. We can buy, Julie, you've been in the business. I mean, we can buy dumb terminals instead of buying a full-on computer, which is significantly cheaper to be able to access this infrastructure. So it's going to save us money.
Yeah, and I wasn't personal. It's just that I
Oh,
know.
no, I know. I got
you. And it's always good to stay advanced technologically.
Yeah, I got you. I appreciate the question. I really do.
Okay, if we don't have any other discussion or questions for anyone on this particular board action item, let's go ahead and call for a vote, Laura.
Trustee Good.
You're
She's
muted.
Yes.
Oh.
Trustee Law.
Yes.
Trustee Lechtenberg.
Yes.
Trustee Rhodes.
Yes.
Trustee Smith.
Yes.
Trustee Winslow.
Yes.
So it's unanimous.
Okay, moving on to the next item, which is D, removed from the consent agenda to the board action item is ratification of agreements and contracts for, I'm probably going to mispronounce it, but Ocelot A1 chatbot.
Ocelot AI chatbot.
Oh, okay. Anyway, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
A second.
Second.
Any discussion?
Hey, Bill, this is Shelby again. This is pretty much same line of questioning as I had on the last one, except this one, do we need an automated telephone service? I mean, how many people are calling via telephone? Is this going to eliminate maybe one staff position to compensate for the money? And, we negotiated now to 109,000. Looks like the first year's free. Year 2 and 3, we get some grant money. Technology fund, does that come out of our budget?
Yes.
I don't see as phone calls are the future of the college, being able to call in and talk to a robot if it's going to cost us future money.
I understand that, and I'm happy to address that as well. Thank you for the question. So the chatbot is actually, I don't disagree that the future of the college isn't the phone calls. The chatbot is when you go to a website, for example, if you go to Verizon's website and the little thing pops up in the corner and you can start asking questions, texting with it. Right. That's where a significant portion of our contact with prospective and current students initiates is at the website. If we can answer a significant number of those tier 1 and tier 2 questions through this artificial intelligence piece that ties into all of our systems and answers those financial aid questions without having to type a person, it allows our staff, which is as we've as we move through and try to manage our budgets as well as we can. So, with some staff reductions that we've had, it allows our staff to be freed up to really be able to focus across the board on those things that are then tier 3 and tier 4, kind of the more elaborate questions. Additionally, the chatbot being live on the website 24 hours a day or within our Butler app kind of extends our hours, creates a better customer service environment, and it keeps us from it. I'm not going to say, Shelby, it doesn't reduce a person, but it keeps us from coming to you and asking for more people to handle these things. The example that I can give, and Jessica's on as well, and she'll be able to answer from a student services perspective. But the example I can give in IT is at our service desk. Each week we get about 150 password reset calls. If those can be handled at that chat bot or at that kind of tier 1 spot, then the 200 calls that we've got at any given time in our queue that our staff need to try to actually work on to fix someone's computer or their SharePoint or their connection, we can start focusing more heavily on those. And so that's what this does. It creates a better kind of streamlined total student experience, as well as just a constituent experience, period, from a student, staff, faculty, student, prospective student, community member that wants to ask these general questions about the college. And the number of calls, I will tell you, Jessica's going to talk for a second. I mean, we talk about the number of calls that come in that could be handled via kind of at that first level if they get to our website, those tier 1 calls. I guess I'll let Jessica talk to that a little bit, but she gets a lot of calls over there.
We do. Thanks, Bill. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Okay. So I did want to share, I pulled together some data from June through September. The admissions, advising, financial aid, registrar, and accounts receivable departments received 67,265 phone calls just to their main lines. That doesn't include direct dials to, let's say, an admissions counselor to their phone at their desk. This is just to the main lines. Students, I visited a little bit with them as well, and they like the chat bot. They would much rather be able to just type in their question really quick and get a response back or a link to the correct page, as opposed to calling someone and getting their question answered. I shared with them that I don't like the chat bots. I close them out just as soon as they come up. So I think it's a generational thing that individuals like to be able to just go in and not have any interaction with anyone and just type in a question. I think it's going to help us tremendously. Right now, just getting phones answered is a challenge. Several of our departments are understaffed already. When you compare our departments to like institutions, for example, within financial aid, based on the NASFA data, we should have a staff size of 22 and we have 12. Also for registrar, their recommendation for similar institutions is about 14, and we have 9 full-time and 1 part-time. And then for academic advisors, NACADA, which is the National Advising Association, they recommend that there are 900, about 300 students to 1 full-time advisor. However, most colleges are at about 350 to 400 students per advisor, but at Butler, we are at 480 students to an advisor. So as you can see, I mean, our numbers are already, we're stressed with just meeting the needs of our students. And so being able to reduce the number of phone calls for students to get those first tier questions answered will help us tremendously.
And I think the key thing to remember is when Jessica mentions there's 67,000 phone calls they've received, people aren't looking in the phone book for the phone numbers, so they're getting that contact information. Their initial kind of exposure to Butler is at our website. generally, at which point they'll be presented with that chatbot and have the opportunity to get some of those questions answered there. So while this won't filter out 67.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you hear me that time?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't hear you. Yes, go
No,
ahead.
it's okay. Do you have any kind of trouble software that you're using to log call priorities?
Absolutely. We utilize ServiceNow
Okay.
for our service desk and kind of our workflow stuff throughout the institution. We use Cisco Call Center or Contact Center, which today can give us reporting on those number of calls that are just general incoming and outgoing calls. But yeah, we use ServiceNow for our ticket resolution and tracking.
About how many, what the percent do you feel like that the bot will answer for you?
Tier 1 calls, tier 1 and tier 2 calls. Just again, what I can say from an IT standpoint.
Yeah, just a rough percent, Bill. I'm not going to hold
Yeah,
you to this.
yeah, we're looking at about 20% of the calls that come in are right off the top tier 1 and tier 2 calls. The thing to remember is the chatbot has a hook into every department, so it extends beyond student services and IT. If somebody has a bookstore question or whatever, those things be answered too. So when we look at the national average from these AI solutions, the right off the top, the reduction is anywhere from 25 to 35%.
Okay, one more quick question. The only other question I had is,
yes, ma'am.
What other colleges that are in our realm of, well, what other comparable colleges can you tell me have this bot or are considering it?
So if you, if you want to see what Ocelot's chatbot does, go to WSU Tech's website. They're using this chatbot today. Barton Community College is in the process of.
We need the support of our friends and our larger community. We wanted to make sure that.
I know something's playing there. Okay, sorry. If you go to WSU Tech, they've got this specific chatbot. Barton Community College is implementing one, and then a couple of other of our Kane and KCCIT partners in Kansas.
The same chatbot?
I'm sorry, pardon me?
The same chatbot?
WSU Tech is using this exact same chatbot, and then Barton is negotiating with this company right now.
Okay. Any other ones? I guess I'm asking
this
not because
chatbot or a chatbot.
Well, I'm not really trying to compare us. I'm just trying to see if we're ahead of the game. That's what I'm trying to figure out.
I think.
Are we ahead of the game as far as comparable community colleges?
I think
with our enrollment, with our status.
Sure. I think local community colleges, those that we have in our area, like I said, I know Barton Community College, Hutch is exploring the chatbot right now. They're in price negotiations, and then WSU Tech has it in place. Partner colleges of our size throughout Kansas and Nebraska, which are colleges that we interact with on a consortium perspective standpoint. Wayne State College in Nebraska, which is a 4-year institution, but it's our size, and they're a collaborative partner of ours. Northeast Community College. So I would say we're on the front end of it, but it's happening across the board right now. So we're and the great part about this is we're leading the charge in these negotiations. Amy Kirshner, our vendor relations manager, which you asked about earlier, she negotiated these prices down with Ocelot, and some of our partner schools are collaborative partners like Barton Community College and so forth are going to be able to leverage the pricing that Amy's negotiated down. So it's a great partnership.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate it.
I just had one last comment. I know when our 3-year contract's up, if it's like the cable company, it's like, hey, now you're $60,000 a year.
Right.
At that point, let's renegotiate.
You must be talking about Cox Cable.
We can go to a different company, or we need to renegotiate a price again. You've already got setup costs.
Yep.
If I say yes to this, that my intention is that we renegotiate in 3 years and not just take whatever they give us as our.
So to Julie's point earlier, when she asked about a contracts or vendor relations manager, and Dr. Kroll mentioned that we handle all of those in IS. We do absolutely, Shelby. We don't push anything out the door unless it's gone through very significant contract and price negotiations. I assure you of that, and I'm happy to sit down and talk about that anytime. And so in 3 years or 2.5 years, when this is coming due, my team will be on it, and we'll hammer down those prices again.
And if it's not doing what we needed to do, let's just cut it
I
loose.
can pull, we'll be able to pull metrics from this as well, which will, you know, what I would say is 6 months from now or whatever, 6 months or a year after implementation, I'd love to bring back to the board and show you guys the metrics of where it all fell.
I would love to see that.
Absolutely.
And I have a couple other things that I would like to add that we are really looking forward to, if we have the ability to go forward with this, is being able to, a student will be able to have their questions answered 24/7. So if we're not open, they're still going to be able to access this chat bot. Also, multiple students at the same time, because it's not dependent upon an individual to answer those questions. Also, financial aid is really excited about the video library that is available for financial aid and helping students with financial literacy, applying for aid, and those kinds of things. So wanted to mention those benefits that I think we'll see as we go forward.
I know I said one last question, but is this system also maybe able to transfer eventually to the department to where they can leave a message about
Yes.
maybe a counseling appointment?
Yeah, so part of this licensing does include live chat as well. So during business hours, you know, you'll be able to say, hey, you know, chat bot, you're not answering my questions. Sorry, I'm making motions here like I'm typing, but hey, chat bot, you're not answering my questions. Can you please transfer me to a financial aid advisor? And they'll transfer you one of two ways. They'll give you the opportunity or the option to connect a phone call, or they'll just transfer you via chat, and you can then start live chatting with financial aid officer or financial aid person or a IT service desk person or whomever that happens to be, if you know, when there's one logged in. So it'd be during business hours.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for the questions.
Sorry to eat up the time. I don't want to spend money unless I know what I'm doing.
That's all right. Is there any other discussion? Oh, sorry. Sorry, Shelby, didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, you're good.
Any further discussion? Okay, we have a motion in a second. I'm sorry, go ahead. We have a motion in a second. Laura, you want to call the vote?
Motion.
Okay, Trustee Good.
Motion's already been made. Then I'll second. Oh, sorry.
It's already been seconded.
Where was I?
Yes.
Trustee Law.
Is it?
Trustee Law.
Oh, yes, I had to unmute.
Thank you.
Sleeping.
Trustee Lechtenberg.
Yes.
Trustee Rhodes.
Yes.
Trustee Smith.
Yes.
Trustee Winslow.
Yes.
Unanimous.
Okay, supplemental information, Kim?
You still need to do, Jim, still do a motion to approve the consent agenda now.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, gotcha. I've got my witness on hold. That I'm
I move that we adopt what's left of the.
Yeah, do I have a motion?
Yes, you do.
Second.
Do I have a second? Do I have a second?
Yes.
I didn't hear.
Lance seconded.
Okay. Call for vote, Lori.
Trustee Good.
Yes.
Trustee Law.
Yes.
Trustee Lechtenberg.
Yes.
Trustee Rhodes.
Yes.
Trustee Smith.
Yes.
Trustee Winslow.
Yes.
Unanimous.
Thank you for reminding that I missed that, Kim. I just went right past it. Supplemental information.
Yeah, on page 84 in your board books, you have the key performance indicators and the K4 performance agreement outcomes. The only recent change is highlighted there. You'll see under the KPIs where we're looking at completion, credentials. That's changed just a little bit. We also, Lori and ESOM also were in meetings this week, and our updated performance agreements with KBOR have been approved for the next year. And so we'll update some of these things after the first of the year when we get ready to report back out on those. The following pages include some of the just updates and short reports on our strategic plan performance indicators. And I want to specifically point out and make sure that you read the information on page 86. This is the textbook affordability performance indicator, and you'll see as you go down through this, the work that that textbook affordability team has committed. And at this point, the amount of money and savings, over $1 million that has been saved by our students in textbooks that have been converted to OER format, and they're continuing that process. So read through that. This is a significant initiative that the faculty have taken on, and they've done a great job and continue to expand those numbers of resources that are used in OER format. And then on page 91 also, the student life cycle tools. Again, we're using a Viso software or retention tool system that allows folks to stay in closer contact with their students. Each student has a team of Butler employees that kind of encircle it, that include both faculty and staff. And they keep track of students' progress, their grades, how they check in with them, how they're doing. In the world that we're living in now, if we have a student that indicates to a faculty member that they're quarantining or that they're having to test potentially for COVID, that faculty member can send through a Viso an alert to College Health to let College Health know. So we're using a Viso in lots of different ways to engage our students and to support them, and it's really turning out to be a fairly significant help when it comes to retention of our students. And then on pages 93 and then on page 96, you'll see both some report on the performance indicators that relate to concerns about mental health needs now in our employee population and our student population, and the work that we're doing to try to put together resources for both students and employees. We've seen some increased need, obviously, because of COVID for suicide support and depression support and some things like that. So we're trying to address those needs even within our own faculty ranks by finding out from the faculty, specifically in behavioral sciences, who's qualified from a counseling perspective to provide some assistance to students. And so we're working on those. So I just wanted to point those out to you.
Can I ask how you're measuring that need?
We're measuring it because of the increased number of requests to talk to our mental health counselor on campus, her increased calls, the increased concerns that specifically relate to depression and suicide. She's seen a significant, and the number of referrals that are being sent to her. So we work with South Central Mental Health and some other resources, but we've seen an increased number of requests and referrals to her. So, and then this is the college calendar again. The statement of revenues and expenditures is in there. And then the college calendar, just remember again that the ribbon cutting is on Thursday. Hope you're able to attend. I'd like to be able to introduce you if you're there. And you can come and go. It's not, it's not anything formal. It's just going to be pretty informal. We'll be meeting the student union entrance of the 5,000 building. And then the December board meeting, typically, we, just so you're aware, we kind of try and keep that December board meeting short, typically because there are other school programs and things like that. I don't know that there'll be any school programs this year, but oftentimes we'll kind of try and limit that because other people have other things that are kind of going on in December related to holidays and families. So anyway, I think that's what I have right now.
Oh, I'll motion to adjourn.
I don't think so. Okay. Okay. I think that's all. I'm sorry. Did you say something?
Yeah. Said I motion to adjourn.
Oh, you motioned to adjourn.
I think
Oh.
Julie beat the motion to adjourn, so I'll second it.
Call for vote. I don't think we'd have any discussion on that one.
No.
Trustee Good,
Yes.
Trustee Law,
Yes.
Trustee
Should
Rhodes,
be.
Yes.
Trustee Winslow,
Yes.
Trustee Lexford,
Yes.
Trustee Smith.
Yes. Put us on our toes on that order last time.
Yeah.
Unanimous.
Did she ask you?
Up there, Laura. I was waiting to go after Lance and then you.
Because I looked at my.
You
I
were.
made that motion and nobody even
I know
noticed.
you about knocked me
Sorry.
over with it. So
I think I have an old.
I think maybe take just a quick break, real quick, if you need to go down the hallway or get another bottle of water, and then Kent and Kim are gonna do a short budget overview for us in the work session and give you an update on where we are kind of right now. Okay? Can we get up and stretch for about 5 minutes? Is that okay, everybody?
A break would be great.
Okay, good. Jim, are you sticking with us or do you need to go? He maybe's gone. I think he's
I
gone.
think he went to his witness.
Yeah, he's trying to do depositions and. That's fine. We're gonna live stream it and probably it'll get recorded and stuff, so you can go back and look at it if you want to.
I will
We're not
try
sure.
to attend.
We're
Did
not
you
sure how many.
resend me whatever it was that, I don't know. Yeah.
Tom Braga does. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, I get 100 emails a day, so I'm not saying that I didn't accidentally
Well, you would have
delete it,
gotten
because I
it.
might have.
It probably came, I think Kelly was the one that sent them out originally, didn't she? Or somebody in her office did.
And I might not have recognized.
Yeah.
And then I was going to ask you, are any of our trustee email addresses on the Butler County College website?
Yeah, they're all there. Yeah.
They are?
Yeah,
Okay.
if you look on the Butler website and look at Board of Trustees, it lists all your Butler. It lists your Butler emails.
I was just wondering why that. Are we off?
No, I don't think so.
Because I'll just start sending all my emails to that. Well, I was trying to keep you from seeing them outside. It's just a really handy thing. Well, that's where you get your IT degree, right? You have friends? My, and my master's. That's okay. Well, I tried to hide it when I came, but I don't have one, and unfortunately, I haven't ever been to the bookstore, and I need to go, just for that. But someday.
Julie was asking me and I said, I don't know for sure. I could sure get you that Butler blanket, Shelby.
I might fall asleep. I got too warm.
Get curled up and snuggled
I'm not
in.
sure I have ADD, but I slept through a lot of high school and a lot of college.
Did you?
Oh yeah.
Hey, I was coming through, I don't know, coming home the other day. Everybody back now, Kent. You wanna take things away for us?
That'd be fine. Can you hear me okay?
I can.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, good. I'm going to share my screen here.
That's fine. We've got box lunches we'll send with you too.
So you can see my screen moving up and down, right? Okay, good.
Yes.
Excuse me. I know Dr. Kroll said this would be a short presentation. I thought I'd say it was going to be short and sweet, but I think I can make it more short than I can sweet at this point. So I wanted to kind of talk just a little bit about our budget calendar to put this presentation in context a little bit. Right now at the departmental level, all our departmental budget officers are completing what we call program review forms. And basically it's an internal analysis based on our strategic goals where they look at various aspects of their department and determine whether their base budgets are appropriate or if they need to recommend changes either up or down to their budgets. So that's going on. One of the other main things that is happening right now is we have an administrative team reviewing our tuition and fees. and the rates. The next major decision point that the board has to make will be in March. We'll actually come to you in February with a preliminary recommendation for tuition and fee rates for next year, and then ask you to approve those in March. So the budget update at this point in the year gives us some context, both in determining what's feasible for the departmental budgets as they're combined and come up through the VPs to that level. And then also as we look at what we should be doing for student tuition and fees for next year. So with that context, I'll go ahead and just kind of walk through the update, and please holler at me if you have questions or what you want me to stop and take comments. I guess the first thing I would note as a change in our credit hours in July, we had estimated that we would go down about 7.8%. It was like 143 credit hours that we were estimating, partly because we've had an enrollment decline over the last few years. That's been the trend. But with COVID, obviously, we thought that was going to be a greater barrier to our enrollment. So based on the numbers we have in the fall and the effect on the budget, we're estimating now almost a 10% decrease from last year. Hopefully, spring will be a little better. We can bring that estimate back up, but that's where we're at right now. And obviously that's going to affect our tuition and fee revenue estimate at this point in time. Also, state aid is another big issue for us. We had estimated about a 7% decrease in state aid because we were told by Heather Morgan, our KCCT rep, and just our legislative information that we probably should estimate about a 7% decrease in state aid based on last year. Now we're being told we should estimate a 10% reduction. At this point, we have not actually received a reduction in the appropriation, but everybody, the consensus is that it's coming, probably coming shortly. So we've changed our state aid estimate to be a 10% decrease. So those are two major factors. In looking at just our overall revenues, expenditures, and unencumbered cash balances, we had brought a recommendation back in July that was based on keeping the mill levy the same. Of course, the board decided to decrease the mill levy from about, I think it was about 17.8 to 16. That created a change, a decrease in our estimated local sources revenue of $961,000. So that was the first big change. Then from the budget that the board approved back in August, we've had some changes since that time. There are not a lot of changes. And I'll go through, I think the easiest way is to go through and look at them at the revenues first. Here's of course, the big change is in tuition and fees or student sources. We had estimated about 18,125,000. We're currently looking at just a little over 18 million. So the net change is about $114,000. One of the things that happened We actually had an increase in online enrollments this year. Obviously, the pandemic and COVID has contributed to that. So we had an increase in our estimated online course fees of $200,000. That's helped offset some of these other decreases that are caused by the enrollment reduction. And then also we're estimating that we won't have quite as many waivers as we had originally estimated. So it nets out to be this 114,000 decrease. I'll come back to this
Can I ask a
federal
question?
Sure, yeah.
This may be a little off topic from your point directly, but to that point, did the college get any negative feedback from students that about these additional fees that for online classes they didn't want to take but had to take because we only offered it online?
We
Okay.
didn't when they got switched to remote learning, we didn't the only students that got charged online fees were ones that were enrolled in online to start off with from the very beginning. So when students got switched over to remote, we didn't charge them any additional fees at all. Some institutions did, but we did not. And so this fall then, when they enrolled in classes, if they enrolled in online, they got charged an online fee. But if their courses have been hybrid or switched to remote, we aren't charging them any additional fees at all because it's not it wasn't their choice to begin with. So some institutions turn around and charge all kinds of fees, but we did not.
Okay.
Yeah, I would like to clarify that just a little bit because technically we did charge them that online fee last semester, spring semester, but because we knew COVID, the CARES Act would allow us to reimburse those students. We basically did it as an internal transaction. We charged their account and then we credited their account so that the revenue did come to the college for that. And that's this $795,000 we're showing here as federal sources. And originally we thought that would come into the current year budget, the YE21 budget. But for audit purposes, since it was technically a fee from last year, we had to show it in last year's budget. So when we showed you the revenue estimate in August, we had included those COVID funds, but then we actually reclassified them to the previous year. And so it also shows up as a change of our beginning unencumbered cash balance. So I know that's a technical point, but I did want to clarify that a little bit.
Right. So the students didn't actually have to pay out of their
Right.
own pocket any kind of additional fees.
I have a
Yeah.
question on those fees, and I'm hoping somebody can answer the question. What is I have never done an online class here. What is our justification for charging an online fee? Is it because we don't charge another fee that we normally
Right.
charge for a class?
Yeah, I can answer that. Originally, when online classes started, because they were unique and technology based, a lot of institutions were charging an additional online fee for that technology support and for the course development and those kinds of things. What you're going to see going forward, though, is because everybody's using technology now in their classrooms, everybody's using Canvas course shells across the institution. We're going to eliminate that online fee for just the online students, and there's going to be a technology fee that's charged to all students because all of the students now, and everybody across the college is using technology for their classes. So it's kind of a leftover from over the years because online, when it started, needed additional support and additional technology support. So,
Well, I'd sure like to see those fees reduced or go away.
well, they're going to. The online fee is going away completely, and there's going to be a technology fee that's charged every student across the institution because of the increasing use of technology and the increasing technology costs. So, yeah. So that online fee is going to go away in this next year.
2021.
Yeah, it won't be part of the fees that we charge our students beginning with this next academic year, correct?
In the fall.
Right.
Yeah, good questions.
Did you have a question?
Any other comments or questions? Kate? So the state sources, you can see here, we've decreased our estimated revenue there by 505,000. That's the difference between a 7% cut and a 10% cut. So we'll see what actually transpires there. As I mentioned, we haven't received a definite word yet on what that's going to be. We didn't make any changes to the local sources, but I would remind you that back in August, when you approved the budget, we had anticipated at that time that there would be a shortfall in payments of taxes this year by about 7%. So we increased our delinquency rate basically, or our uncollectible local taxes from about a normal 2% up to about 9% or close to 10%. So this is one area where we may be better off at the end of the year than we are estimating at this point. I think there's quite a bit of thought that the local economy didn't suffer so much that we're going to see a large number of people not pay their taxes. So hopefully this particular number, this 13,252,000 for local tax revenue, I'm hoping that we'll be able to increase that estimate in the spring. We should know by January what that's going to look like, I think.
Was the county always telling you that number? That 10% number?
It really came from guidance from the state, and Heather Morgan, that's what she was hearing statewide at that level. I don't know, Kim, do you have any other thought on that?
Yeah, they were talking about it through commerce conversations and, different sort of state agencies, because they were anticipating that people either wouldn't be able to pay their taxes or would choose to delay them. And so it was really kind of conversations that came on the front end, from state agencies as well. But that certainly wasn't what we heard locally. The local folks, indicated that they didn't think it was going to be that bad.
So what's the reality?
We don't know yet. Kent just said that we'll know more in January when we get our first payments.
Cumulatively, we don't know. Okay.
No, we don't. But you can see on page 3 down, in highlight down towards the bottom, the 961,116 is what we anticipated would be potentially a reduction in tax revenue collections, local tax revenue collections. And once we have more information after the first of the year, we'll update that. But that's what we anticipated to start off with based on those kind of state level conversations.
So those are the main items that really reduce our revenue. We had a couple other things here. Reimbursements of $130,000. That's just an offset to a change in an expenditure item. When I go through the expenditures, you'll see that same amount. And also there's about a $13,000 item here on transfer. That's a wash also with expenditures. This other income item, the $138,000 decrease, that's an interest income. We anticipated we would have a reduction in interest income, but we didn't anticipate enough. And once we actually saw what the rates went to, it's obvious that we need to reduce our interest income greater than what we did back in August. So those are the main changes to the revenue side. I'd like to go on to the expenditure side. And this is pretty brief. Again, here's that 130,000. It was, the foundation gave us $130,000 more this year than they would normally give us as to reimburse us for some more of their salaries over there. And we had just put it in, we had put it as a reduction of transfers. It should have really been a reduction of revenue. Anyway, it's a wash. Same thing with this correction of the president's car reimbursement. Those were up on the revenue offsets also. This bookstore position, when we listed all the cuts we made last year to the budget, this cut got put into the general fund. It's really a cut to the bookstore budget. We still lost that position. We just had it in the wrong fund, so we have to make that correction here. The salary furloughs, it says on hold. I just forgot to take that on hold part off of it. When we had you approve the budget in July and August, we had anticipated making these furloughs to our employees. As the administrative team looked at that later on, as the fall started to progress, we just determined that that really wasn't practical thing to do to our people. We think maybe, there's been some savings in positions that may offset part of this, but we made the decision internally not to go forward with the furloughs. And I don't know if there's any other questions or comments on that. I'd halt just a second to see if there were.
Yeah, I would just note that those furloughs were going to impact us, only a segment of our employees. We were not going to be able to spread them across everyone. And we made the decision that we want to work hard to try to just offset that potential savings within budget savings that we have throughout the year, unspent budget that we don't have, and budget that we're not spending, and like Kent said, positions that we've left open. We've left a number of positions open. We have positions that we're filling only temporarily. We've got some retirements coming up at Christmas time, and some things like that we won't automatically probably hire and fill right away full time. We'll do temporary positions. And so we want to try and absorb this rather than just apply it to a small segment of our employees.
At one time, Kent, did you tell the board that this salary furloughs was part of a budget that we approved?
Yes, we had anticipated those cuts at the time you approved the budget in August.
Okay, what do you think was the reason that is it attrition mainly, or COVID-19 supplemental funds, or it's a lot of money to take out of the budget all of a sudden is all?
Right, we had those discussions, and we do think that and we'll go back and look at the estimated unspent budget. It's at 2%. We do think that was a pretty conservative estimate, that it probably will come in more than that. And we just felt that this was the most prudent way forward. So we will ask you to approve this this current iteration of the budget next month, and we want you to know that those $400,000 that we anticipated cutting for furloughs is not going to be cut. So we'll talk more about that probably when I go back and look at the overall effect of the revenue and expenditure changes. Just a couple more items here. We had anticipated travel reductions of $150,000. We were still in the process of identifying all those cuts, and it turned out we were only able to truly identify about 101,000. So we're going to add back 49,000 here. Again, there's a good chance that there will be this reduced travel. We just aren't able to really pinpoint it to specific budgets at this time. The next item is increase in the scholarship estimate. Every year we estimate the amount of scholarships in the summer that we think will be charged during the year. We update that estimate in the fall and the spring, and the current estimate is $50,000 higher than the estimate that we made in the summer. And the final change there is the payment that we had to make for the Roger Matthews lawsuit that was finalized during this year. We thought in July that there might be an amount that would be charged to the college, but we didn't have the settlement yet. I know you've all been updated on those figures as it happened. So we have to add a one-time payment. This won't be something that carries forward in our budget, but it is a one-time increase to our budget. So going back to the overall summary, we just talked about the changes here, the 634,000, what those were. Went through the operating budget, or excuse me, operating revenues, and showed those changes. Now, again, 795,000 of that was from the CARES money that was actually, we had shown as a revenue for the current year when it was actually should have been shown as a revenue in 2020. So this footnote down here talks about that. And so you see that our beginning unencumbered cash actually went up from what we showed you back in August. It went up by $580,000. 795,000 of that was from the CARES money that was the revenue that should have been shown in YE20. Then also we just had some miscellaneous audit adjustments that brought the ending unencumbered cash from last year down by $214,000. This is not unusual. We have those kind of audit adjustments most every year. A lot of it is in accounts payable and things like that that show up after we make that close. We have to make the close about 3 days after the end of the year. And so we generally have audit adjustments. So those are the changes that were made. And the other thing I just want to touch back again on is the unspent budget estimate. And we did have quite a bit of conversation about this with our VP group. We've been estimating a 2% unspent budget, basically because we like to have sort of a conservative estimate there. Historically, it has been greater than that. It was almost twice that much last year. So that kind of played into our thinking about the current recommendation here to eliminate the furloughs. So I just kind of want to reiterate that point. And that really is the summary of the operating fund changes that we're recommending at this time. And we will ask you to approve this next month. So I would go ahead and toss it back and see if there are any other questions or comments at this point.
Shelby Smith. Why would our scholarship number be more than we anticipated if we're a little lower on students?
Well,
Oh,
do you want to take a crack at that,
I
Kim?
wasn't sure he could hear you, Shelby. No,
We can't
I wasn't.
hear.
I was just going to say I wasn't sure that
I
you could
wasn't
hear
close to my
Shelby.
mic,
So
sorry.
Okay.
sorry
Oh.
about that. Go ahead.
I did.
Ken.
You wanted to know why the estimate would go up on scholarships. We have a lot of scholarships that are dependent on how many students come in and get those scholarships. You know, especially in our activity programs, athletics, fine arts, and so forth. A lot of it depends on how many students actually show up. That we always award more scholarships than are taken, and so it depends on how many students actually come in and take those. The other thing, another area, is that we give scholarships, our what we call our deans and presidentials and valedictorian scholarships. Those are sort of a guaranteed scholarships to students based on their GPA, or, you know, to some of them if they happen to make a valedictorian. But the deans and presidentials are a certain amount, set amount. And if so, we don't know how many students are going to actually enroll who have the GPA that would qualify them for the dean or the presidential scholarships. So we have to make an estimate every summer on that based on, you know, our history and what we anticipate happening. And then we look at what actually happened in the fall and the spring and adjust those estimates.
Okay, thank you.
now those scholarships, are they simply credits for handed out, or do they include all kinds of scholarships?
Yeah, there's all kinds of, you know, I think Jessica's on here. She might want to talk to that more than me, or she might be more knowledgeable. I can't see her.
No, that's all I.
Yeah.
That's all I wanted to ask.
Okay, yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
At one time, I had asked Kim to provide me a list, and I think I talked to you about it too. I wanted a list, Kent, of the scholarships per se that we were handing out, and I wanted to include all the ones that, like you're talking about, that we hand out to students for valedictorian and what have you, and any other outside the college awards that we made. And I also wanted to know how many hours were for free because of staff or somebody's kid or whatever. I mean, I am just interested to know the mix. I'm looking at, okay, what percentage is this? What percentage is that? That's all I'm looking for is the mix.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen in just a second
Listed
here.
this information. Where?
Page 17.
In the supplemental information, we do have some summaries about scholarships. So let me see where this, yeah, it starts on page 16 of the supplemental and
okay,
goes on through, and it does delineate some of the different types of scholarships that we have. And over here, it specifies how many dollars we spend for each sport for the athletic scholarships. And so I think they're on.
I'm looking at page 17, and they're listing academic scholarships and then activity and then other.
Right. Is that some of the information that you were looking for?
Yeah, if I have any more questions, can I just email you?
Yeah, that would be fine. And I can, if I can't answer it, I can find somebody who can answer it.
Yeah, I'll copy Kim on it.
Okay. That'd be good. I don't know, Jessica, did you want to say anything else?
No, I don't think so. I mean, this outlines it. It just
Okay.
depends on what questions come up.
Okay, thank you.
page 5.
What'd you say?
I said, we're not very far along, are we?
I don't think he's going to go through all of it.
Oh.
No, I thought we would just stop there and answer some specific questions. I mean, if you want to talk about the supplemental, we can do that. It hasn't really changed that much since his August presentation.
I think Lance has a question, Kent.
Kent, is it too simple to say that there's a $3 million kind of deficit right now that'll have to come out of cash if we don't figure out a way to fill it? Can I look at that on page 2, or am I looking at that wrong?
No, you're looking at it right. I'll go ahead and share this again. Yeah, I probably should have highlighted that. I know I talked about this in Finance Committee. I think this is what you're referring to, the revenue over under expenditures currently is at a $3 million deficit. So that is a problem. When you come down for this year, we're still ending up a little bit over the 10.5% of expenditures on our unencumbered cash. But the big problem is, how do we turn this around for next year? So that's, again, going back to the context of the fall budget update. Part of it is to set the stage for what we need to do for next year.
Yeah, and and in the midst of the conversation, remember that the key pieces that are hanging out there, part of the key pieces hanging out there are tax revenues and how those come in, what the state, what happens with the state budget, where our spring enrollment is, so and even if you look up above, we've got 1 million, just over $1 million that we anticipate in unspent budget, but Kent told us when we finished up this past budget year, because of COVID, we had a higher unspent budget because we weren't traveling and we weren't, doing a lot of things. And so we anticipate that unspent budget estimate will be higher. So that, again, can offset some of the potential deficit of $3 million there. So there's still a lot of moving parts in this. It doesn't mean that we ignore it, but there still are a number of things that are unknown that will become clearer as we get into the spring semester as well. So, but it's a target that we watch as we, start to do our budget planning for the following year.
Speaking of budget planning, program review form, could I get a copy of that?
Sure. We do an academic program review form and a non-academic. It's really that initial form is kind of an overarching view of, where we think we need to be next year. For instance, my non-academic program review budget forms that I submit for President's Office and Board of Trustees talk about, what strategic goals I think we need to try and meet. And if I think my expenditures are going to go up, where they would go up and why, so it's just kind of that overarching view to start off with. So help me remember, Laura, to email copies of those to everybody tomorrow.
Kim, would you like me to just do that? I could do that.
That'd be fine, Kent. Thank you.
Be sure and use the right email address.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
Maybe I'll just send them to Laura and have her send forward them.
That sounds good. Laura can send them on to everybody. That sounds good. Thanks. You may not have Lance's updated email address potentially.
Yeah, that's what I was pointing fingers at him.
Yeah. Other questions at all? Well, thank you, Kent and Kim. Appreciate your time and your energy. I know Laura's got a little box lunch for
thanks, guys.
Some of you that are still here. So thanks, Mary Martha and Doug, for being online, and all of the exec council folks. I appreciate your time and everything.